Hey, something else that I thought about in regards to manipulative pastors and the institutional church systems. Um, so, and if if you went to church, probably at least for a couple years, you've probably seen this at least once, where uh, you know, especially if it's you're in a church with major issues or that's toxic, where some guest preacher shows up that's that knows the regular pastor somehow. Either they were like friends in like Bible college, or then maybe they're just childhood friends growing up, or maybe they went to some church together and got taught by the same person or whatever. And the guest preacher shows up and he preaches the sermon for the day of the service or whatever. And the sermon is basically a you better obey your pastor kind of sermon. And you know it's a real some of the real like uh, people that are more culty, like we're sometimes like literally like the whole sermon is about that. Okay, other people do it and their sermon is about that, but they don't want you to know that's what the sermon is about. They'll try to make it more subtle. Okay, but some of them, it's like right out the gate, like that's what the sermon's about, and they just try to hammer it into you that you know, basically for you to obey the pastor no matter what. And some of them even go and you can find clips of this on YouTube too, of other preachers that do this. YouTube's so crazy too that sometimes you could find a preacher preaching this about himself too, like on YouTube at a physical church that he just put on the internet. But about how some of them go as far to say some of them go as far to say that even if the pastor's wrong, that you just pray for him and you don't correct him because he's the man of God. And they like to hammer in this concept as well. Lots of them that the pastor's the man of God, and you don't touch the Lord's anointed, right? And a lot of them go to this passage in First Samuel, and they take it way, way out of context. and and a lot of pastors, I think they do it on purpose to where they have their buddies show up, so that you're not hearing it from the pastor, but the buddy's just basically telling you to obey the pastor no matter what. Usually it's another pastor from like a different church in a different town, or like some retired evangelist or whatever. And and the whole reason they went there is basically to get the church in line to listen to continue to listen like to the pastor without thinking critically nor asking questions. And they really do try to hammer it in that basically that you're going against God if you're questioning the pastor, because they say the pastor's the man of God, and that even when he's wrong, you just pray for him, and you don't touch the Lord's anointed. It's very manipulative. And look, I've never been to charismatic type churches, like Pentecostal type churches. But I have friends that are ex-Pentecostals, and a lot of them told me that the manipulation tactic in those churches had to do with the pastor trying to scare the congregation into just believing whatever he would preach, and if they don't believe what he preached, the pastor would just say that they're in danger of blaspheming the Holy Ghost. And it would just terrify people in those congregations. And that's how pastors in those charismatic churches tended to keep people in line. But I guess in the more Baptist fundamental so-called churches, they wouldn't use that one. They would use, don't touch the Lord's anointed, and the pastor's the man of God, and you better obey your pastor. And don't you leave this sermon for lunch and have roast preacher for lunch. And maybe if there's a pastor that's watching this and they're getting mad at me and they're saying, well, you don't know what it's like to be a pastor. Well, my retort is, you don't know what it's like to, be basically treated as a second-class Christian who's inferior to pastors, and to basically, just have a bunch of garbage shoved down your throat, and basically be told it's not garbage. You better accept that it's tasty. You're not right with God, and don't you come up against the man of God. So. I don't care if somebody has pastor behind their name. Like, if they're doing something manipulative, or they're preaching heresy or whatever, you don't get to hide behind the title pastor so that you could be safe from criticism. That's not. It's not right. It's not biblical. Where you'll never find in the Bible some bishop just being infallible. Okay. And look, there's a bunch of other manipulative tactics that pastors use. I mean, the whole altar call thing, and I've said this before in other videos, like, if somebody who knew nothing about church, like the church culture, how about just an atheist, right? Like, if some atheist walked in, just like late to a church service, forgot to change his clocks or whatever for, here in Brazil we don't do daylight savings time, but let's say he lived in some place where it was daylight savings time, and he forgot to change his clocks, and he showed up to the service basically when the service is just about over, okay? And he walks in the middle of this altar call, and there's just like people bawling out the altar, kneeling, and like the preacher's just standing up either next to them or right in front of them. And what's that atheist going to think? He's going to think, man, like, these people are bowing down to the pastor, because that's what it looks like. I'm a Christian, and when I see altar calls, that's what it looks like to me. Because I first of all, I've never seen a pastor, go down at the altar or whatever, but it's so manipulative, okay? And a lot of pastors thinks it's like a great church service if they get somebody to cry in front of them while they're just, head down, basically kneeling in front of them. It's super messed up, dude. And so that's very manipulative, and like some of them even go to a point to try to make you feel guilty if you don't go up there and bawl in front of the pastor. Like they'll play manipulative music, sad music, and act like you need to come and do your business with the Lord and get right with God, and that some of you haven't been right with God for years, and some of you haven't come to this sawdust trail, and yet and your heart's far from God and all this stuff, and then in some churches also, you have people that are so brainwashed they go to the altar no matter what. Like I've seen people go like in the middle of the preaching, like they go to the altar in front of everybody. You know, and then so in some churches you have those people that'll just go to the altar no matter what, and then also you have some people that like as a manipulation, like you have like some deacon or something that like goes to the altar to try to get other people to go to the altar, or like the deacon like pre-plans that he's going to the altar to try to get other people to go to the altar or whatever. To I guess it's kind of like the fake it till you make it mentality. But yeah, like and a lot of preachers also nowadays like study psychology, and there's nothing biblical about psychology, and you know psychology is very manipulative. I have no problem calling it witchcraft. There's not, and really, it's totally not of God, and it also tries to explain human beings without souls and without sin, right? So if you use it's just you're not going to solve anything, okay? Because they just deny the sin nature and they deny the soul. So I don't know why in the world somebody would try to use those methods. But I guess the dogs are just having a bark fest again with the neighbor dogs from afar. Yeah. The dogs. Beware of dogs. Beware of the concision. But, I guess I'm going to sign off now. I'm not going to try to outbark the dogs now. But just watch out for manipulative tactics and realize that pastors are not infallible. And it's actually foolish to believe that. And, if you're saved and you're a man, you're the man of God. Period. Okay? You're a king and a priest. And pastors aren't supposed to just talk down on you and just like exalt themselves and basically demand that you just kiss up to them and worship them and treat them like they're at like some higher level of spirituality than you are. They're not more righteous than you, okay? Because if you're saved, you have the righteousness of God imputed onto your account. And, that doesn't go up and down in levels. God's always righteous, okay? And if you have his righteousness imputed onto your account, okay, so, like, you don't go down or up levels. Like, You're not less righteous today than you were yesterday. Just because you didn't tithe or something. That's ridiculous. And let me just end this video with this. If you if you study the book of Malachi, you'll realize that who was robbing God in the book of Malachi, were the Levite priests. Okay, which is very ironic considering what a lot of preachers preach now. But it wasn't just the common man or whatever. Like, it was the Levite priests that were robbing God. And also, look, the Levitical priesthood is dead, and so is the tithe. No, you don't have to tithe in the New Testament. And God doesn't curse believers because Jesus Christ died to free us from the curse of the law. Okay, so that's another thing that manipulative pastors try to do. They take Malachi out of context, and they'll try to act like you're robbing God if you don't give them a tithe. And then they'll say that if you don't do it, you're going to be cursed. It's ridiculous. And look, look, if you think God can curse a believer, even though Jesus Christ died to free us from the curse of the law, at best you're a babe in Christ and you have no business teaching anybody. At worst, you're not even saved. Because you're trusting in your own works, and you just didn't believe the gospel. So, either way, I'm not going to listen to somebody like that to, try to teach me what spirituality is and try to, tell me that I'm not right with God if I don't do works. And or works for them is usually what they mean too, sneakily. Um, but anyways, take care.